Atelier Mysterious Trilogy Deluxe Pack is Koei Tecmo's newest release on the Nintendo Switch. This collection of 3 Atelier games are comprised of the most recent trilogy of games before the highly regarded Atelier Ryza Trilogy launched, including Atelier Sophie, the Alchemist of the Mysterious Book DX, Atelier Firis, the Alchemist of the Mysterious Journey DX, and Atelier Lydie and Suelle, the Alchemist of the Mysterious Paintings DX. Nintendo Switch fans now have access to the entire trilogy, while previously only Lydie and Suelle were released on the hybrid system to some rather unfortunate performance issues at the time. Unlike my typical reviews, I like to split this one up into 2 different segments. First, I want to discuss what returning players to the series can expect to see in each one of these 3 entries, and then cover what newcomers can expect to see from each individual game, since there's quite a lot to cover. I'll leave a timestamp in the video description so you can skip to the part where I start discussing each one of the games individually for newcomers who perhaps discovered the series after playing Atelier Ryza and wish to know how this trilogy compares and stacks up. The Atelier Mysterious Trilogy is available either via a bundle or each game standalone on the Nintendo Switch eShop, and only physically sold through PlayAsia, so for those looking to collect physical games, this is yet another one of those instances that you'll have to go a bit of your way out to import. But with that said, each of the 3 games include all of their previously available DLC. This encompasses tons of quality of life changes for each one of the games, like dual audio for Sophie and Firis, but sadly not for Lydie and Suelle. An option to speed up combat significantly, letting you get through battle faster, especially when grinding or farming for monster parts. A photo mode is introduced so you can pose with characters in different stances and take pictures anywhere you want. And my favorite addition to the entire package is a surprise one that I was not expecting to see, and that's a digital art book for each one of the 3 games. The digital art book is actually 3 fully separate downloads on your Nintendo Switch system. They give you full access to each of these games' digital art books with dozens of pages with tons of beautiful art for each one of the games that you can click on the art directly and zoom into it, explore, and enjoy. A few choice songs from the soundtrack are also added into the digital art book download so you can enjoy a few of the catchy tunes as well. While it does bloat up your Switch's homepage with 3 extra tabs that could have been easily added in the game's main option instead, I won't complain about such a nice addition being added in. It just reminds me that we're in dire need of folders for the Nintendo Switch, but that's not quite this game's fault. Atelier Sophie DX gets 6 new costumes added in, as well as 4 new songs, a brand new sequel episode that you can play once you finish the game, a new additional gathering area, and even new difficulty mode in Despair. Several new cauldrons also allow you to maximize your synthesis, and even a dash option that will allow you the freedom to run from place to place much faster. This is a feature that was sorely needed in the original PlayStation 4 release back when I originally played it. Atelier Firis DX has 4 new vehicles that allow her the freedom to explore the massive areas much faster, while also removing some of the stamina caps the game has been well known for. There's also new bosses added into the game, including some secret encounters, 2 brand new playable characters with Shannon and Heinz, 16 new character costumes, 4 new songs, 2 brand new gathering areas for even higher quality items to craft some of the better endgame items made a bit easier. Lastly, Atelier Lydie and Suelle DX get access to gatherable fragments in each one of the game's typically explorable paintings. This gives you access to 1 extra painting once you collect all of them that lets you see the world of Nelke and the legendary alchemist. This was the 4th game released on the PlayStation 4, and while not directly related and tied to the Mysterious Trilogy, it was an anniversary game with over 100 Atelier characters included. Lydie and Suelle DX also get access to 2 new playable characters in Lucia and Ilmeria, 7 new character costumes, 5 new songs, 1 new gathering area, and several quests with new recipe options. That's not even to mention the slew of new features that weren't available previously, like maximum level unlocks, new obtainable sync skills, new traits on crafts, and much more. To say that these games got a ton of love in this enhanced versions is an understatement. There's just so many little changes that collectively add up into quite a lot for each one of the games offered, and having them all into one neat collection makes this even better. Now that I've covered just how much bang for your buck this collection is, I like to go over the games individually, where there's no better place to start with the first game in the trilogy, Atelier Sophie, the Alchemist of the Mysterious Book DX. After the passing of her grandmother, Sophie is tasked with managing the atelier and now must get better at alchemy if she wishes to get by, not just for herself, but for the better of Kirchenbell as well. As she learns the ins and outs of alchemy, she comes across a mysterious book, as the title suggests, named Plachta. Soon, Sophie learns that Plachta has many secrets and kind of forgot most of them, so she asks her to teach her the basic levels of alchemies, and Sophie's journey begins. Kirchenbell works as your typical hub area where you venture out from, and is reminiscent of earlier Atelier games in that same format. You'll mostly handle middling tasks from the citizens of the town in your downtime while venturing off adventuring your story to help Plachta regain her memories and get more knowledge stored into her. Along the way, many companions will join your ranks, and each has a friendship meter that you can focus on to try to raise to get to know them better. This will trigger specific scenes of dialogue with each one of them. While there are no romance options, this is done much more to know each one of the characters individually and learn their very own backstory. The alchemic system in Sophie sets the stage for what you should be expecting to see in the series for a while, where they will simply iterate on it. Gather materials out in the world or simply during combat, then make sure to bring them back to the atelier and synthesize some goodies like armor, potions, bombs, and other craftable quest items you're asked to make. Everything is color coded so it's easy to follow. You have 16 square grid to work with, and depending on where you place your items, it triggers effects that can be obtained and chained upon. This gives your craft a new set of bonuses, new boosts, new passives, raises the quality of the item, the total items you obtain, and much more. Combat is also traditionally turn-based in nature, and the option to set either offensive or defensive stances is another feature later games will adapt on as well. Offensive stances give you a damage boost, while defensive lowers your intake coming damage. Swapping back and forth gives your 3 party members the option to fully deal with situations independently and handling enemies without much of an issue. Since even in normal, I always found these games to be rather easy until you reach the endgame. Atelier Firis, the Alchemist of the Mysterious Journey DX, is the second game in the trilogy where you play as Firis, a young girl stuck in a rather gloomy town that's locked behind a rather large stone door. The locals fear the outside, only letting a few come in and out of the massive gates. This is the starting point of Firis' insatiable curiosity with the outside world, where she must get to no matter what. At the same time, Sophie, having finished her grand adventure, is out exploring said outside world. She comes across this locked away town and does the typical expected thing and busts right in. When the two meet, Firis realizes that alchemy can be her ticket out of the town once and for all, and sets up a chain of events that finally allow her to visit the outside world she's always dreamed of seeing with her older sister Leanne. Expect quite a bit of cameos of characters from the first game getting spiced into between the introductions of new fan favorites. Sadly, this creates a bit of a pacing issue with the story in general, where there's long drawn out moments where you're simply handling busy work with basic town requests from the places you visit. So the main story takes a bit of a backseat for huge chunks of the time that in my original playthrough presented something of a slog. With that said, you can see with a glance what will eventually become some rather staple features in Atelier Ryza, like the size of the environments being massive. Unlike any of the previous games where they were usually contained to small segmented of areas, Firis has you exploring some rather big areas, and the inclusion of the aforementioned vehicles makes this even better to explore. Map traversal is also very similar to Ryza, and something the series built upon going forward. Each of the areas is fully explorable, and there's no one huge town anymore like in Sophie. Instead, you simply move from town to town, giving the world a sense of scale and progression as you move into the later parts of the journey. Another feature Ryza fans will notice is a day and night cycle, giving your exploration much more importance, since items now appear only at certain times of the day. So it's worth checking out areas at different times of the day where even weather effects are also introduced, giving one zone several reasons to be revisited, just like in Ryza. The alchemic systems are an iteration once again from Sophie, where you have to raise your level to unlock new recipes alongside the grid-based system that's now been expanded to 20 squares in a 5x5 box, giving you the type of bonuses and greater effects to all of your craftable goodies the more items you synergize together before your synthesis. There is a new option to mass synthesize later in the game, so you can avoid making items one at a time. Meanwhile, combat remains similar to Sophie, adding just the chain burst option, so each one of your characters can follow up on another yet again, and it's a feature that Ryza fans will easily recognize. While I have been mentioning Atelier Ryza several times when discussing Firis DX, it's not as similar as Atelier Lydie and Suelle, the Alchemist of the Mysterious Paintings DX, the third game of this package and the final chapter in the Mysterious Trilogy. You play as two sisters who run a rather small shop in the capital but struggle to support themselves financially. With their mother gone and their father being somewhat of a comical relief deadbeat, they have to pull their own weight and carry the shop all by themselves. It just so happens that the city will be hosting a luxurious event where the winner will receive some financial benefits and promotions to their shop, so they see this as a great opportunity to boost their reputation and finally get ahead. Like Firis before it, expect some cameos from the two previous games' protagonists, but know that it focuses much more on the sister story. Unlike Firis, who basically had to get carried by Sophie quite a lot of the journey, Lydie and Suelle's story is a bit more ambitious, but ultimately not quite as fulfilling. This is one of the first games that I reviewed on Switch, and back then the performance was a hindrance, and I'm glad to say that on this DX re-release, it's much better while still not being perfect. Gathering and world exploration is relegated to the paintings themselves, as you head into them to pick up materials, battle enemies, and reach the end of each one of them to trigger an event. They mainly work as dungeons. The good thing is that the worlds are much more fantastical in nature than in previous games, and they're gorgeous to look at, while sadly returning back to the somewhat linear approach we saw back on like Atelier Sophie. Gathering does evolve though, and just like in Firis, you now have the tools giving you the option to gather more items in several different forms, something Ryza fans will also recognize. Speaking of things you'll recognize, traversal is exactly like an Atelier Ryza. Just discover a new area and now you can warp to it freely, showing just how restrained the two previous games were. Combat is similar to Sophie and Firis and is turn-based and tactical in nature, with now including front and backline character support. This gives your support characters the options at no cost to provide you with buffs, heals, and even enemy debuffs, so your three active characters can simply focus on damage dealing, and is easily the best combat of the three games of this collection. Lastly, the grid-based alchemic system returns once again that you've already seen from the previous games, but it doesn't iterate on it, just streamlines it even more, giving you greater flexibility for your crafts. The Atelier Mysterious Trilogy is one of the most ambitious collections I've seen on Nintendo Switch, with so many enhancements added to each one of the games, making them the best version available to date. Newcomers to the series should have more than enough game here to last them for quite a while, while Ryza fans and the Atelier faithful will see just how the series has evolved while taking in yet another trio of games that are as relaxing to get involved with as they are delightful to play. Nintendo's Fear gives Atelier Mysterious Trilogy on Switch an 8 out of 10. If you're brand new to my channel, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, hit the bell to receive notifications when my videos go up, and as always, thank you so much for watching. See ya!